Do you want to test? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yes?
I can test it. Now we're ready to go.
Okay, are we ready? Okay. You know, the sermon's called the wait this morning, so we're just doing a little test of a waiting. All right, here we go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Eliot Chapel. My name is Todd Stark, and I'm pleased to be your liturgist this morning. We are an intentional community whose shared work is to open our doors to all races, all genders, and all sexual orientations. We strive to welcome people of all creeds and beliefs, all economic circumstances, and every type of family. Our vision is to create a just world through vibrant, beloved community. If you are with us for the first time, thank you for choosing to be here. We hope you feel warmly welcomed and that the message resonates with your heart. If you received a guest card on the way in, please complete it and place it in the offertory basket when it comes around, and this will help us connect with you. If you are visiting online, please send an email to welcome@eliotchapel.org so that we may personally welcome you as well, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have about Eliot or Unitarian Universalism in general.
Our opening words this morning are from Peter Friedrich's Each New Day. Birds do not worry this morning or fret the rising sun. They wait, expectant, until its rays kiss their downy necks. Then, stretching, they turn to face the day and sing. Come, let us worship together, expectant for the day that awaits. Our chalice lighting this morning. Each Sunday, we light this chalice, which is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, and our chalice lighting this morning comes from Charles Howe. This morning, we light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through, to enlighten our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. New love is ever waiting. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us. And now, if you will rise with me in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, number 57 in our gray hymnal, All the Beautiful March of Days.
Please join with me for the unison reading of the covenant as printed in your order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be, to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends. This morning, the Time for All Ages story is on the Kindle here, so give me a moment. and it is entitled Waiting for the Biblioburro. On a hill, behind a tree, there is a house. In the house, there is a bed, and on the bed, there is a little girl named Anna, fast asleep, dreaming about the world outside and beyond the hill. When Anna wakes up from the rooster's cree-cree-cree, Poppy is already at work on the farm, and Mommy is busy in the garden. Anna bathes her little brother and feeds the goats and collects the eggs to sell at the market. After breakfast, Anna and her mother walk down the hill. Anna closes her eyes against the sun and wishes she was back in the cool of the house with her libro, her book. Anna has read her book, her only book, so many times she knows it by heart. The book was a gift from her teacher for working so hard on her reading and writing. But last fall, her teacher moved far away, and now there is no one to teach Anna and other children in her village. So, at night, on her bed in the house on the hill, Anna makes up her own cuentos and tells the stories of her little brother to help him fall asleep. She tells him stories about make-believe creatures that live in the forest and the mountains and the sea. She wishes for new stories to read, but her teacher with the books has gone. One morning, Anna wakes up to the sounds of the tuck-tuck-tuck, clip-clop, and loud yah. And when Anna looks down the hill below to her house, she sees a man with a sign that reads, Biblioburro. With the man, there are two burros. What are they carrying? Libros, books. Anna runs down the hill to the man with the sign and the burros and the books, and other children run to him too, skipping down the hills and stomping through the fields. Who are you? Who are they? The children ask. The man says, I am a librarian, a bibliotecaro, and these are my burros, Alpha and Beta. Welcome to the Biblioburro, my biblioteca. But senor, says Anna, I thought libraries were only in big cities and buildings. Not this one, says the librarian. This is a moving library. And he spreads out his books and invites the children to join him under a tree. Once upon a time, the librarian begins sharing a story of an elephant who swings from a spider's web. He reads from books with beautiful pictures and helps the little ones learn the abracadabra. He sings A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Finally, he says, now it's your turn. Pick out books, and in a few weeks, I will be back to collect them and bring you new ones. Me too, asks Anna. Especially you, says the librarian with a smile. So many cuentos. Sorry, my Spanish is not great. While Alpha and Beta chomp on the sweet grass under the tree, Anna picks up a book after book and finds pink dolphins and blue butterflies, castles and fairies, talking lions, and magic carpets. Someone should write a story about your burros, said Anna to the librarian, rubbing Alpha's nose and feeding more grass to Beta. Why don't you, he asks, and then he picks up the books and is off. Enjoy, he calls the children, I will be back. Anna runs up the hill to her house, hugging the books to her chest, and she can't wait to share her books with her brother. And that night she reads until she can't keep her eyes open any longer. Each morning, Anna does her chores and reads and looks out her window, and she listens for the sounds of Alpha and Beta, but weeks pass and the librarian doesn't return. When will he come back? She asks her mother, who smiles and says, go ahead, go read, Anna. When will he come back? She asks her mother, who smiles and says, go draw, Anna. When will he come back? She asks her mother, who smiles and says, go write, Anna. When will he come back? She asks her mother, who finally says, go to bed, Anna. One night, Anna dreams she's flying over her country on a butterfly's back, and in her dream she crosses mountains and oceans and rivers and jungles, bringing stories everywhere she goes, and stories fly from her mouth and fingers like magic falling into the hands of the children waiting below. And when Anna wakes up, she terribly misses Alpha and Beta and the Biblioburro's books. And she remembers that the librarian told her that she could write a book. And so, with paper and string and colored pencils, she does. And finally, just when Anna thinks she'll never see the Biblioburro again, she wakes up to the yah, and children yelling. And she runs down the hill with her library books and a special surprise of her very own. I wrote this cuento for you, she says. Que bueno, says the librarian, and he reads her story to the children under the tree. And when it's time to go, Anna's book is packed carefully on the burro's back, ready to be carried away over the hills and through the fields to another child who is asleep on a bed in a house on a hill behind a tree, dreaming of Alpha and Beta with all the new stories that the Biblioburo will bring. Oh, it's offertory. I needn't go anywhere. So, invitation to giving. Every Sunday, Eliot Chapel shares half the offertory with an organization whose work reflects our shared values. And in November, we're sharing our offering with Kirkcare, a nonprofit organization formed to help the needy living within the boundaries of the Kirkwood School District. Kirkcare collects funds and food donations from area churches, businesses, civic organizations, individuals, and distributes these resources to families in need. They have a food pantry with food deliveries, provide assistance with utility bills, funding for school supplies, and Christmas food and gift box distribution to client families. Eliot has long supported Kirkcare, and we're proud to do so again this year. If you are worshiping in person, you may place cash or check in the basket or use your smartphone to scan the QR code on your order of service. And if you're joining us online, please go to our website and click the Giving tab and choose Shared Plate. Let us be good and generous neighbors. What's that?
We skipped the prayer. We'll do it after the offertory.
My notes clearly say to sit down, and I didn't sit down. Will the greeters please come forward and join in the unison dedication of these gifts? To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings.
And now, if you'll join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, place your feet flat on the floor if you are able, straighten your spine, and begin to follow the breath of life inside of you as I read Nancy Schaefer's poem, Witness. To that place before words know how to say themselves, or thoughts have an inkling they will be born, to the quiet place where the holy dwells, that place before knowing, stillness before form, where tears cannot stop, can find no ending, and crying out fills the sky. Also to that place where the earth first turns, and turning turns to bounty, and stumbles upon hope. Out of love, out of longing, you come. And now please join me in a time of silent meditation. Into this shared silence, please speak the names of those you wish to hold up to the love and prayers of this community. To all these, and to the families of the victims of Club Q in Colorado, and to all those involved in gun violence this week, and to any others who could not be named, we pray in the name of love, compassion, and peace. Amen. Please remain seated for our meditative hymn, number 112, in the gray hymnal, Do You Hear? The reading today is an excerpt from a BBC article from this past June 2022 called The Norwegian Library with Unreadable Books. One recent Sunday morning in the forest north of Oslo in Norway, more than 200 people gathered to watch a ceremony. They had walked in a procession, some with their dogs, others with their children, along gravel trails directed by arrows on the ground made from sprinkled wood shavings. The air carried a scent of pine needles, burnt logs, and strong Norwegian coffee. At their destination, a recently planted forest, the people sat or crouched on a slope dotted with spruce trees. Each tree was still only around 3 feet tall, but one day when the spruces are more than 20 to 30 times the size, they will provide the paper for a special collection of books. Everyone there knew they would not live to see that happen, nor would they ever get to read these books. This was the 2022 Future Library Ceremony, a 100-year art project created to expand people's perspective of time and their duty to posterity. Every year since 2014, the Scottish artist Katie Patterson, along with her Norwegian counterpart and a group of trustees, has invited a prominent writer to submit a manuscript, and the commissioning will continue until 2113. Then, a century after the project begins, they will all finally be published. All the manuscripts will be stored for almost a century inside locked glass drawers in a hidden corner of Oslo's main public library, within a small wooden repository called the Silent Room. In 2114, the drawers will be unlocked and the trees chopped down, and 100 stories, hidden for a century, will finally be published in one go. The authors and everyone else who was in Oslo that Sunday knew they would almost certainly not live to see that happen. It's a project that's not only thinking about us now, but those who are not yet born, explains Patterson. In fact, she adds, most of the authors are not even born yet. Their future library group, the community of followers that attend these ceremonies along with the public, helps to support the longevity of the project itself. If Patterson had chosen to work alone, its fate would depend on her own interest and continued existence. But now there are hundreds of people involved. It could easily last for 100 years and beyond without her, in the same way that a fibrous rope does not rely on a single thread running its whole length. As Patterson pointed out during the ceremony, the future library is built by many hands. At the ceremony, Patterson said that while she herself would never read the books, there was at least one ceremony attendee who might, her son, who would be in his 90s by the 22nd century. During the weekend, he had no qualms about wandering up to the famous authors and asking them questions. During a moment of quiet solemnity, watching the writers enter the silent room to place their manuscripts in the drawers, he shouted out, "What's inside?" It's actually what everyone was thinking. Here ends the reading. Thank you, Adam. That was beautiful. Good morning. I never introduced myself. I'm Amy Stark. I'm a member here at Eliot Chapel and sometimes preacher. So thank you for inviting me back, and it's good to be with you all. I know we are here to contemplate the coming holiday season and how we wait as humans. And alongside that kind of waiting this year, in my household, my youngest son is enjoying the college admission process. Enjoying is a strong word. Anyone out there remember this life stage? For those of you who have kids who go through this process, or those who have taught or loved kids who have, the process is usually filled with grumbles, procrastination, excitement, and tons of nervous anticipation. So enjoyment is really not quite the word. The shining prize on the other end is his future, and the prize is writing essays that can explain his first 17 or 18 years of life in about 600 words or less. It's no small task, and it's odd. It's an odd project, I think. The prompt for one of his essays is to imagine yourself on a mission to colonize Mars, and out pops a group of Martians to demand that you represent the human race in a song, image, memory, proof, or other idea that proves humanity is worth saving. Fascinating prompt, isn't it? Now, I have no idea what he's going to answer for this essay, but my mind flooded with many examples of the things that I might choose: pieces of art, scientific ponderings, gardening. But this prompt also set off a flood of memories for me, of me in a moment in time when I was my son's age now, 17. In the summer of 1990, I stepped off a rackety old bus with a group of other teens and a few adults into the not yet dawn of the Russian steppes. It was misty all around, with the sun's dawn just barely peeking and a few twinkles of stars amidst low clouds. I was really tired. My muscles were tense and sore from the uncomfortable bus ride, and before that, an airplane from Moscow. I was cold and disoriented. And then we saw these lights, many, many flashlights off in the distance, bopping along with a couple of lanterns, and dim outlines of the people carrying them. And before I knew it, they were all in front of us, offering hot cups of tea in tin cups, with excited hellos and privyets, an informal hello in Russian. As I watched the steam rise from my cup, I took a sip and tasted, unusual to me, the slightest flavor of fig and tea. Some of us had met the previous year in the United States. Many of us were total strangers, and all but two had a near complete language barrier to each other. Lots of smiles and nonverbals continued to be exchanged as I watched that sunrise halfway around the world. It felt awkward. It felt both old and new. It felt magical. This trip was the summer after I graduated from high school, and I traveled to Russia with a group of kids and a few adult leaders to go on an archaeological dig. It was the odd opportunity of a lifetime. And I think few things in my life, other than my wedding and the birth of my children, have left me with so much anxious and excited anticipation. I had never been overseas. I had never been away from home without the ability to call home for so long. And while we were a group, I had yet to be this responsible for just little old me while I traveled. Because we had to organize, raise money to go, we had a good year to anticipate and await this trip. I felt like I was going to explode sometimes in the waiting. I was simultaneously anxious to go to a place that no one I knew had ever gone, and also excited to be out there in the world, a newfound young adult freedom. This mix of anticipation and fear caused stomach butterflies and some nausea on that long flight over, and I am not proud to say I threw up on that plane 20 minutes before we got to Moscow. Life is full of awaiting things like this. The stuff we fear, the things we love, the changes we know we must face, and everything in between. As you can tell from my throwing up part of that tale, I'm not the best at handling anticipatory moments. Most of us are not great at an awaiting skill. Imagine the last long line you sat in. It most likely involved more grumbles than gratitude. Or those most serious times of waiting, hospital waiting rooms, the storm to come, the inevitable end of a love or the beginning, a birth. We have all seen these types of awaiting. But usually in the midst of them, or at the other end, we see a glimpse of something that settles the nerves, provides some hope, and steadies us for more of the journey. The taste of the fig tea and the smile of strangers was that for me. Today, Christians around the world will begin their own waiting as they anticipate Jesus' birth in the season before Christmas that they call Advent. The word Advent is an Old English word that derives from the Latin adventus, which means to come or approach. Each Sunday in Advent, Christians light a candle to represent first hope, peace, joy, and love, like shining a light in the window to await these ideals. This definition seems kind of passive, though, because the season of Advent is generally considered to be a more active time, a time of intentional preparation, more like the meaning of wait from the Old French, to observe, preparation, to observe carefully, to be watchful and prepared, and the more German influence, to attend to. In the story of his birth, in one of the Christian Gospels, Matthew begins by reminding us of ancestry. There are a long line of begats in this gospel to hearken back to a people's history, tales of enduring, and other times of waiting. These biblical begats made me think of this meme I saw recently of ancestral mathematics. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a probability of how many ancestors total you need to be born. It turns out, if the math is right in this, don't check me on that, 12 generations, it would require 4,094 ancestors over the last approximately 400 years. At the end of this mind-boggling list, it states, think for a moment how many struggles, how many battles, how many difficulties, how much sadness, happiness, how many love stories, how many expressions of hope for the future did your ancestors have to undergo for you to exist in this present moment? And I would add to this, think of all the anticipation and wonder, right, that takes place in the span of 12 generations and 400 years. In each generation, a longing to understand, to imagine. This reminds me of the author James Baldwin's quote about endurance. He writes, "One must say yes to life and embrace it whenever it is found. And it is found in terrible places. Nevertheless, there it is." He goes on, "For nothing is fixed. Forever and forever and forever and forever it is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have." He ends with this, "The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs and the light goes out." Beloveds, this is a beautiful but demanding quote from Baldwin. It's demanding, especially since he has been gone 35 years. Each word of his speaks to me from across an era long gone about caring for one another across generations and generations. Did we heed this well for him? Will we? Will we wait well? As the words Advent and await suggest, I think the holidays invite us towards something. They ask us to prepare space. The request that we lead others into both remembering the past and wondering about the future. But we need tools to do this well. We need to create ceremonies and spaces where sacred stories, hospitality, active listening, holy imagination, and empathy can mingle. And again, that sounds truly demanding, I know, but I think we do it all the time in little ways, in small moments. This is why my son's essay prompt made me think of having an informal, impromptu tea ceremony on the Russian plains. It was ceremony and story, the quintessential ingredients of endurance and joy as humans. And I don't think that those of us on that trip would remember that moment so vividly if it had not been for our peers who had spent the time to turn the ordinary into a ceremony, ending that waiting and letting us get to know each other in the midst of possibility. And we did create a story together on that trip. We created lifelong memories where two cultures came to know one another and understand this incredible web that holds us all. Ceremony holds story, and story holds us together. Whatever stories we tell as humans, there is a ceremony that probably represents it. Each time we carry out these little or big ceremonies, it's as if our ancestors are whispering in our ear their story and telling us, pass it on, pass it on. Indigenous writer Robin Wall Kimmerer, in her memoir, Braiding Sweetgrass, writes about her father's tradition when they went camping as a family to greet the morning. He would dump out his coffee grounds by the water's edge while reciting gratitude to the gods. She writes of this moment, the power of ceremony marries the mundane to the sacred. The water turns to wine, the coffee to a prayer. The material and the spiritual mingle like grounds mingled with humus, transformed like steam rising from a mug in the morning mist. An informal ceremony that Kimmerer says has the power to focus attention to a way of living awake in the world and is a vehicle for belonging. A vehicle for belonging, that's a great phrase. I know some of my fondest holiday memories were spent lighting candles at the Christmas Eve service with all of you and singing Silent Night. And I know when I missed ceremonies, I had to miss bread service because I wasn't feeling well, and there was an ache about that I wasn't here with all of you. The anticipation of Christmas Eve service just a few weeks away will help me to hold the grief of a second Christmas without my mom. I'm sure it will hold some of you steady too, for whatever change in your life and shift you have had to make over the last year. Brene Brown, a social work researcher, names that we are story stewards. We must tell and keep telling the stories to help us remember, as she states, that we are imperfect, we are wired for struggle, but we are worthy of love and belonging. We can endure, we can wait, we can anticipate well when we do it together. So to round out the message today, I'm going to end on my family's own Advent tradition, which is a blend of the Christian story and pagan notions of hope and grounding. So I brought our Advent circle, which generally in traditional spaces would be a wreath of evergreen, but we add that as we go along each week. And this is from my aunt, and it's special to me because of that. And then this is, I bought this at Fair Trade space a long time ago, and it has a felted kids nativity set. And here are Mary and Joseph. They are on a camel. I know it's not a donkey. The donkey's here. They fall off of the donkey if we don't put them on the camel instead, because the camel has humps that fit Mary and Joseph. So I would place Mary and Joseph, hopefully this doesn't mess with the sound, on the edge of our dining room table. So that's where they will go at the beginning of this today. And we will light a candle for hope tonight. And we will also light a candle for stones and bones. We have a whole little saying. And this year, the tradition every year as the kids grew up included a lot of things in this circle. So not just the stones and bones and holly branches, but we had Batman some years, Pikachu, I don't know, boys, tell me what else. We had every sort of thing. And so I'm going to improvise a little bit this year, I thought. This is where Jesus is going to go eventually. Also, we lost the real baby Jesus from the collection, so I don't know. It might have gone in the vacuum cleaner a few years back. So, but this year, I'm going to improvise this. I'm going to use the donkey and the shepherd as the story shepherd, we've decided. And they're going to travel along with Mary and Joseph, probably can't get them to stay, to bring us story for the year. And to make that Advent tradition remind us of the importance of story. So I'm going to light the candle, if I can find this. A candle for hope. Also, I have hair ties to keep these candles in, so hopefully we have an ability to keep this going. We're going to get it. There we go. As I lit that candle and set stones in the center to prepare for a grounding for the new life that awaits us, I ask, how will you ground yourself in a steady story, in a ceremony, a ritual of love and care that can await the joys and concerns of your life, the ebbs and flows and uncertainties? Because we are in challenging times where stories are not honored, where violence invades spaces once considered safe. May whatever you do this holiday carve a space for hope and contain the generational longing for something better amidst the mundane of coffee and pie, dance and music, chosen family and story, and a candle in the window that all somehow turns to sacred prayer. May it be so. Amen. And now, if you will rise as you are willing and able to join with me in our closing hymn, number 226, People Look East.
People look east.
remain standing for our benediction. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, and which helps us await life's mysteries, be in us and among us now and always. If you'll be seated for our postlude.